Alright, Walking Dead Daryl Dixon fans, we're back with another video. This one's gonna be a trailer breakdown for the San Diego Comic-Con trailer for the 3rd season of the Daryl Dixon spin-off. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of different pieces to this trailer. We're not gonna be breaking down every little scene, but I just took the most important shots from the trailer, and then we're gonna talk about those. It looks like we have a pretty clear idea what's gonna happen in the season based on the trailer alone. So with that said, let's jump right into it. So of course, at the end of season 2, Daryl and Carol were heading to the UK. That's exactly where we pick up. In season 3, we have this pretty awesome shot of London, a post-apocalyptic London. If you look closely on the road, you do see two people. Those are probably Daryl and Carol. And it looks like they're going through some sort of barricade or some sort of gate. And this is probably a gate that was set up earlier during the fall so that they could control the population, which obviously failed. But we do see the two of them in the UK, and at some point they do run across an Englishman survivor. It's Stephen Merchant's character, and he basically brings them to somewhere safe. Now it's interesting because obviously he's a comedian, so there's gonna be a comedic part to it, and there absolutely is, because Daryl asks, "Where is everybody?" And then Stephen Merchant's character says, "You're looking at him. I'm the only Englishman around." I'm sure that's not true, but it's just funny. But he also tells them about this boat, and it looks like this boat is gonna be what's gonna help them go wherever they need to go. And we see them on this boat trying to travel out of this area or out of the UK in general. I'm sure that Daryl and Carol at this point are still wanting to go home. Now it looks like something happens, and at some point, because of bad weather, we have the boat crashing, and it looks like that's the end of their adventure. We have Daryl and Carol washing ashore. Now it's pretty funny because Carol says, "This is not Maine, is it?" Because they were expecting to get to Maine, which is where they left from, but obviously it's not. Where is it? Probably around Spain, because that's the next location that they go to. But before we go to the Spain part, we don't see Stephen Merchant's character with them, so I'm assuming that he dies or separates or something. The trailer has a scene with him later on, but it's not from the Spanish story. It's from the UK story, so they want you to think that he survives, but he doesn't. But at some point, Daryl and Carol find this Spanish community. It looks like a fortified community. It has a castle in there. It looks pretty established. We see the two of them being greeted by the leader. He welcomes them and everything. Now, it looks like when they get there, there's some sort of celebration going on, because there's all of these people in masks and people dancing, and it looks like it's a celebration of some sort that's happening when they get there. The person you see watching the show here is actually an important individual. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but he's what they call the Spanish King. We do have the leader of this community saying that his community is under constant threat. And we have Daryl and Carol at the table listening, and it looks like there is a bunch of different groups that attack. We have what looks like a cult, like medieval mask-wearing cults on horses. We have them here as well, and it looks like at some point when they attack, Daryl is there, and he basically sees them and goes to warn the community. But it looks like there's also a gang in motorbikes. I don't know if they're related or connected, but it looks like there's different types of threats to the community, just like the leader said. And then later on, Daryl is having a conversation with another Spanish man who is also an important character. We'll talk about him, but they are talking about this guy that just came in. Daryl asks, "Who is he?" And then the guy says he's the King of Spain. And so they're talking, and then Daryl says, "So you're telling me that this guy comes in, you give him one of your daughters, and then he provides you weapons?" He's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what's happening." And he says he calls it protection, but it's really extortion. I get a lot of Saviors vibes from that whole story arc. Not saying it's repetitive, I'm just saying that it's definitely very much like that storyline. But this is the Spanish guy that I was talking about, and the daughters are his daughters, or people's daughters in general, I'm assuming. But one thing I do want to say, this guy is an important person in the story because he is romantically involved with Carol. I'm sure people are gonna go crazy about this, but I hope that they don't do it just for shock value. I hope that they do it because it fits the story. Because the last thing we want is Carol to just fall in love with every guy, you know what I mean? But the other thing that's important about this guy is he has a scar or burn on his face. Now, when I first saw that in the other trailer breakdown that I did, or teaser breakdown, I said that it looks like a Dwight scar. But it looks like it's something else. We'll talk about it in a bit. But before we talk about the scar, let's talk about why Daryl and Carol decide to stay. So Daryl wants to go back home, go back to the Commonwealth, but Carol says, no, we have to stay and help because obviously the community is under constant threat. And Carol has a new romantic bond in the community, so she wants to stay and help. And it looks like at some point the man that we were talking about actually shows up as they're talking about whether they want to go or stay. So it looks like that's basically Daryl's incentive to stay. He's staying to help because Carol wants to stay and help because she likes this man who is in this community. Now let's talk about the scar on the guy's face. So at some point we have a little girl coming in and offering Daryl water. And guess what? She has the same exact type of infection on her face. It's like a burn or, scar. It looks like a plague type of infection. Now it looks like this is early stage of whatever infection it is. The reason being is because we see other similar types of infected people. We have this one. It looks like this is an earlier stage of that even. And even later on, we see this guy who has the same type of infection, but it looks like it's further advanced than the other ones. Daryl is actually super creeped out by looking at this guy. But it looks like this community is also facing some sort of a infection that is not like a walker infection, but another type of infection, like a plague type of infection. And I think that's cool. I think that adds a lot to the story. It definitely reminds me of the prison arc and, the whole sickness storyline that we saw during that time. So that's definitely super awesome. But it looks like at some point Daryl decides, okay, I'm gonna stay and help. So he's coming up with this plan, talking to these people in the community, one of whom is the same exact guy who we saw who has the infection on his face. And Daryl says, we're gonna kill the King of Spain. So they're basically putting a plan together to kill this guy, the King of Spain, in the post-apocalyptic world. Now, it looks like at some point Daryl understands that the convoy of the king is leaving. And he's like, okay, where are they going? And then they say that they're going to Barcelona. And so it looks like that's gonna be Daryl's next destination, to go to Barcelona to fight this king who has an army and he's by himself. A little dumb, but I hope they explain it pretty well. But it looks like as he's going there, he faces a lot of threats, a lot of different human threats, but also it looks like he sees like a herd of walkers. Now it looks like there is a train cart behind him, so I hope that that's his army. So he's not solo, he's with them. I hope that's the case, but obviously there's a herd that he's chained up together to protect them, so that's super awesome. Now it looks like at some point the community gets attacked. We have the leader here with a machine gun, looks pretty awesome. It looks like chaotic, pretty action-packed, looks super awesome. At some point Carol is screaming, and then it looks like there's some sort of explosion going on in the community, so that's pretty awesome. There's a burnt walker, a super cool burnt walker at some point that we see in the trailer, and that's it. That looks like the entire story wrapped up into one trailer. Obviously we don't know how it's gonna end, but we have like 60% of the story already from the trailer alone. And I don't know if I said it earlier, but the premiere date is September 7th on AMC and AMC Plus. And also it's confirmed season 4 is The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon's final season. So we only have 2 more seasons left. Now, I was expecting that, so I'm not shocked. I was expecting like 4 or 5 seasons. Now, if they went longer, I think there would be a higher chance of cancellation. Yes, that could happen even for Daryl Dixon. Now, the other thing I do want to say is Norman Reedus says Daryl Dixon's story is far from over. And to me, that signals that there is going to be some sort of future crossover with Daryl into another spin-off. Maybe into a new spin-off where hopefully everyone reunites, or possibly even Death City or something like that. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to go through in this video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.